We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Tonight, multiple media outlets reporting Lisa Marie Presley has died following a possible cardiac arrest earlier today. Paramedics rushing to her home Thursday morning. The LA County Sheriff's Department telling ABC News they received a request for assistance from LA County Fire about a female around 55 years old not breathing. TMZ reporting medics performed CPR and administered epinephrine, and Presley regained a pulse before an ambulance carried her to the hospital. Just 2 days ago, Presley seen on the red carpet at the Golden Globes with her mother, the 54-year-old singer and daughter of the late rock and roll legend Elvis Presley, there to cheer on actor Austin Butler, who won for his portrayal of the King in the film Elvis. Butler thanking the Presleys.
Thank you for opening your hearts, your memories, your home to me. Lisa Marie, Priscilla, I love you forever.
And David, Presley's official cause of death has yet to be determined.
I mean, come on. This is really, really sad. I mean, it's just such a tragic family, the whole thing. You know, everybody's, saying what a wonderful, kind person she was. I have no idea. I never met her. But her life was so full of a tragedy from beginning to end that it's hard to even imagine that she made it to 54 years old. Now, you got to feel so bad. Did you see the movie? Did you see Elvis? No, I did. And it was really good, I have to say. And I'm not an Elvis, person. Let's just put it that way. But I was after the movie. I had a new appreciation for, what inspired him and how he became who he was and why he was attracted to the music he was attracted to, where he first heard it, how he internalized, the blues and turned it into his thing. It's a really well-told story. Baz Luhrmann's movie is, really... It's going to, because now that Lisa Marie has passed away too early, people are going to watch that probably this weekend. Young people are going to watch that probably this weekend, and they're going to sort of, understand why Elvis Presley is, Elvis Presley. What's so sad to me, though, being, the daughter of a person who lost their child. My mom lost my sister, right? I lost a sister, but my mom lost a child. And I just look at these two women, Priscilla Presley and Lisa Marie. They not only did, Lisa Marie lose a son. I don't know if you realize that. She had 4 kids, okay? She had a set of twins, a girl that she had back in 1988, and a son also back in the 80s. And her son literally put a gun in his mouth a couple years ago and blew his freaking brains out. She obviously had issues with drugs and alcohol early in her life. I mean, like, who wouldn't, right? Being the daughter of not just somebody who passed too early. I mean, we've all lost loved ones, but she lost somebody who has countless strangers doing horrible impersonations of her father all across the world. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just such a strange life that she had to lead. And then at 17 years old, from what I understand, and I am not an expert on the Presleys at all, okay? It's not my thing. But the story just hit me really, really tough because, I'm thinking about Priscilla and I'm thinking about her. And I'm thinking about how losing a child seems to, be a hurdle that is almost impossible to, make okay. But Priscilla Presley, think about this. Priscilla Presley, who I believe now is 77 years old, she has lost her husband. When you look at Priscilla, when you look at Lisa Marie and you realize Lisa Marie is only 54, do you understand that Elvis was only 42 when he died? Elvis was, everybody said, oh, he got fat and old. No, he got fat. He never got old. He died at 42. It's just such a sad story. But Priscilla Presley was madly in love with Elvis. I mean, they really, really fell in love with each other. And She lost him early, okay? And then she actually lost her grandson. Think about that. Like 2 years ago, she lost her grandson to a horrible suicide. I mean, not that any suicide is okay, but he literally was so sad and so depressed that he put a gun in his mouth and he blew his brains out. And Lisa Marie, who had a struggle with alcohol and drugs until she was about 17 years old and was able to conquer it at, a very early age from everything I'm learning, she actually relapsed after she gave birth to twin girls who are now 14. So she relapsed because a doctor gave her pain medication after she gave birth to the twin girls, who, again, the cycle repeats, right? These twin girls and an older daughter too. She's got 3 daughters. She has Riley, she has Harper and Finley. Harper and Finley are twins. They are, 14 years old, and now they have lost their mother way too soon. I mean, it's just like an endless cycle. It's so sad. But my heart literally goes out to those girls who now lost their mother, because, I am the aunt to somebody who lost their mother, and it's just such a gaping wound that it takes forever to fill it, this big hole inside you. I don't know that it ever gets completely full, but, I mean, and Priscilla has lost, I can't even tell you how many people, around. It's just, wow. So, and I did see the Golden Globes, because, those cartoons that we show during the breaks. So we have this wonderful, wonderful listener of ours. Her name's Stephanie. I won't go into the details, but she's had a battle with her health lately. Anyway, Stephanie, who sends us all these cartoons that she curates for us, she reminded me, she sent me an email to, she always cheers me up every day. Every day she sends something, a hug, just silly little things, right? But she said, the Golden Globes are on. I know that you love the fashion. Don't forget to watch the red carpet. So I did. I turned it on, and I saw Lisa Marie, and I saw her be interviewed by, I'll say, 5 or 6 different reporters, okay, who all stuck a mic in her face. And there was this one time where she was with one of her dad's friends, and she could barely stand up. And she actually said to her escort there, it was an older man, and she said, let me grab your arm, because you could see she was not okay. She just wasn't okay. And it seems like that was 2 days ago. And then last night I saw, like breaking news that she had been taken to the hospital because her heart had stopped, but they could still detect a pulse. And about 2 hours later, I heard that she had passed away. And I swear to God, it was just it was so earth-shattering, because of, you realize she was married to Michael Jackson. She was married to Nicolas Cage, whose brother I dated. Swear to God. Yeah, years ago, Nicolas Cage's brother is named Mark. He doesn't go by Cage. He's a Coppola. They're all Coppolas. And Mark Coppola, we called him the Cope, was a DJ at the same radio station that I worked at in New York, and I fell madly in love with him. Why? I have no idea. I really don't. He was such an odd duck. He's such a weird character. But there was something about him. They all have charisma. All the Coppolas do. They all have this charming, damaged charisma. You know what I mean? It's like, I know that Nicolas Cage took mushrooms with his cat. Okay? This is what I'm talking
By the way, before we move off Golden Globes, your girl Jennifer Coolidge won for White Lotus.
I know. I really didn't watch the whole award show, but I did watch the red carpet because I wanted to see. And the fashion was so bad. It was so terrible that I said, I'm really not interested. I'll, see who won. I'll read Vanity Fair in the morning and I'll find out who won. So I went right back to work because that's what I do. And I didn't watch the Golden Globes. But I did see the red carpet, and I did see Lisa Marie arrive, and she was not okay. And, she was way too young to die. So she's 50. You realize she's 12 years older than her father at the time of his death. But I would tell you right now, if you're looking for, some distraction after we get done with you today, telling you all the news, watch the movie Elvis.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Yeah.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
we're likely to have more of a debt crisis, which CBO talks about and projects, which is really ugly. That means the social contract is unaffordable. That means if you think we're polarized today, wait till we have a debt crisis. So what we're putting in this book are all the solutions we think are necessary to make sure that we can make good on our social contract, which I would argue center left and center right, we agree on. We want health and retirement security. We want a safety net. We believe in Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid. So let's make these things solvent. Let's make them work better. Let's make them guaranteed for the current retirees and make them solvent for the next generation so that they're there when we retire. That takes persuasion politics.
That takes raising taxes. And they won't do it. They won't do it. So this is where we are today. Okay, the U.S. is going to hit its debt limit next Thursday. Janet Yellen already told Congress, you better start taking steps to avoid default because next Thursday, you're going to hit the debt ceiling. And we're going to have to, over here, take certain extraordinary measures to prevent the United States from defaulting on its obligations. Now, what's really sick and twisted is the obligations are the obligations that Congress appropriated because they're the only ones that can spend any money, right? And so Congress actually appropriated this money and said, spend this money and spend it here and do it this way. This is what we're, signing off on. This is what, these tax cuts that were not paid for. Yes, we wanted them. We wanted them and we voted for them and we gave that money away and we appropriated it and the president then Trump signed it into law. 1.7 trillion out the door, unpaid for. And now they want to default on that debt that they ran up. I mean, and the thievery is about to begin. It is. It's about to, they're going to start with, saying, well, if you want to raise the debt ceiling, you're going to have to cut Medicare. You're going to have to cut Social Security. I mean, you understand what a default does, right? Do you? A default is, it's catastrophic. It's not just in the United States. It would be all around the world. There would be repercussions all around the world. Here in the United States, the forecast for a default looks something like a loss of 6 million jobs, a 4% decline in gross domestic product, small businesses going bankrupt. In 2011, which is the only year that the Republicans were ever able to threaten us within an inch of default, okay? 2011, when Obama was president, the Republicans played this game. They played this game of chicken, and just the threat of default literally caused our credit rating as a nation to be downgraded, and the cost of that was $9 billion. $9 billion, because the cost of borrowing, as we all know, as just consumers that hold our own debt, right? You know that if you don't pay your credit card bills, or if you don't pay, what you actually said you were buying, if you don't pay the bill for that, your credit rating gets hit. You get slammed, and so the cost of borrowing money for you goes up. Same thing for the United States, except that you didn't agree to spend this money. Congress did. Congress appropriates it. Congress gives it away. And so now they want to, and just so you know, increasing the debt limit does not authorize new spending. It just says we spent it and now we have to pay it. That's all it does, okay? But what's really creepy is they are going to start to threaten Medicare and Social Security. And how will they do that? They will do that by saying that mandatory spending. There's two kinds of spending in this country. Okay, there's two kinds. There's discretionary and there's mandatory. Social Security and Medicare are mandatory. They want to put that in the discretionary column. Now, I will tell you, this is exactly what Ronald Reagan did. This is exactly the scheme. This is the plot. This is the plan. Ronald Reagan, literally decided to tell you a lie. He told you the same lie that they're telling now. They said, Social Security and Medicare, they're going to default. Social Security and Medicare is going bankrupt. None of that is true. I have showed you that 8,000 ways to Sunday. It's just not true. What is true is that we need to raise the cap on salaries, because $110,000 you pay every paycheck up to $110,000 a year. You pay into Social Security and Medicare. After that, people who make more than $110.01 is untaxed for Social Security and Medicare after that. The whole thing. So you make $1 million, you only pay Social Security and Medicare like on your first paycheck of the year. After that, no Social Security and Medicare deductions for you, because somebody who makes $1 million a year is making about, $42,000 a week? It's sick. But, so Ronald Reagan told the same lie. Medicare, Social Security, it's going bankrupt, and it'll be bankrupt because the boomers in 2010. We're talking 1983. He was telling this lie that when the boomers start to retire in there's not going to be money for that, and we need to raise a Social Security payroll tax. Okay, we need to raise it. So he raised the Social Security payroll tax. Okay, and he raised, by raising the tax on Social Security, what you pay in. He raised $2.7 trillion. Now, just so you know, Social Security now is about $50 billion short every year, meaning we have to borrow. We have to borrow in order to keep it going. Why would that be if the Social Security tax at Ronald Reagan's raised Social Security tax raised $2.7 trillion? Where'd the money go? Where did it go? Well, I'll tell you, it did not go to the Social Security Trust Fund, and it didn't go to the Medicare Trust Fund. No. He raised Social Security taxes, and he put that $2.7 trillion that he raised into the general fund. What does that mean? Well, that means that they could use the Social Security money, not for Social Security, but for tax cuts for the wealthy. So we, who are now ready to collect Social Security, or think that we might live long enough to collect Social Security, now we realize we paid for tax cuts for the wealthy, and we've been paying for them since 1983. This is just one of the ways that they steal from us and redistribute wealth to the very top. Also, wars. Wars have been paid for with that $2.7 trillion that Ronald Reagan raised by raising the Social Security tax. Okay, wars. Anything in the general fund can be used for any damn thing that Congress wants to use it for, whereas in the trust fund, that money has to go to buy treasuries, right? Treasury bonds. Why do they do it that way? Well, because you buy the treasury bonds, you hold them, and then when they mature, you sell them for cash and you replenish the fund. That's the way it's supposed to work. But it hasn't worked like that in a really stinking long time. Long time. So he raises the Social Security tax, raises $2.7 trillion on payroll tax, and puts that $2.7 trillion into the general fund where the Republicans can spend it. That's likely to happen again, if not something even more overt, like just saying, oh, for Pete's sake, why do we have a segregated trust fund for Social Security and Medicare? Let's make it discretionary spending. Let's do that. Let's try and make Social Security and Medicare voluntary, which would cause the whole thing to go insolvent. They're coming for us.
561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
If only we had a president who cared more about what was good for the country and less about how to protect his family's corrupt business interests.
What? Project much, Lala? I mean, it's unbelievable. It is an amazing thing that goes on over at that network. I mean, you know, you had Jared getting $2 billion of a payday from the Saudis. From the Saudis, who murdered an American, murdered an American resident, Jamal Khashoggi, literally dismembered him with a bone saw, for God's sake. Jared had no problem taking $2 billion from them on his way out the door. It's just so bizarre what they're going to do. And this thing, you know what I put in the homework today? For those of you who have a little time this weekend and you really want to know what the Hunter Biden story is, the Hunter Biden story is not a great story. Obviously, it's another story like Lisa Marie's. It's a tragic story of drug addiction. It's a tragic story of bad decisions. It's a tragic story. It truly is. It's a sad story, but it has a happier ending than Lisa Marie, because apparently Hunter is clean and sober now, and he's married to a woman who he loves, and he's doing his thing once again. However, the story of Hunter Biden is not the narrative that the Republicans would like you to believe it is. The story of Hunter Biden is a tragic story. It's a story of addiction and mistakes. And, he obviously, filmed himself. He obviously bought a gun and said that, he wasn't a drug addict when he was purchasing that gun. And that's probably the biggest crime that they're going to uncover. And we're going to have to suffer through like months and months of the Hunter Biden laptop crap because it looks really bad. And it does look bad. It's not going to be pleasant to see somebody suffer like that if you have compassion for anybody who's ever been addicted to drugs and alcohol. But it's also going to be painful to look at because he's a grown man suffering from alcoholism and drug addiction. But it's not the story that they're trying to peddle, where Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, literally ripped off, took money from, heinous human rights abusers the way Donald Trump did. This is not a story of, people sidling up to autocrats and falling madly in love with them. This is not a story of, Vladimir Putin interfering in our elections, for the benefit of Donald Trump. This is not that. This is just a sad story, and it's going to be a sad story. However, they're already sitting there trying to flip the script, just like with the Joe Biden documents. By the way, yesterday I told you it's bad that, that classified documents ended up in places where classified documents don't belong, which tells me that we need to do something about the protocol for handling classified material in this here country, because too many people have taken classified material by accident. That should not be able to happen, considering the kind of information we're talking about. But it did happen. Turns out that, yesterday, Merrick Garland did what I thought was a smart thing. He appointed a special counsel to look into it. And that does a couple things. Number one, it tells Congress we don't talk about ongoing investigations. So don't even come knocking on our door trying to figure out what happened here. We got this. We're going to investigate it. We're going to do it. And so now all Congress can look at is something with a legislative purpose. A legislative purpose. Meaning the January 6th committee, their legislative purpose was to make sure that the Electoral Count Act passed so that you could never, ever threaten to kill the vice president so he can't certify an election and get away with it ever again. Well, here the legislative purpose might be to stop, classified material from ever leaving. They have all these little, I could find my phone. I could find my phone from Brett's computer. Brett can find my phone from his phone. Why can't I find classified material? Why can't I? Do you see what I mean? This is so stupid, but they're not interested in governing, because if they were, that would be their thing. That would be what was upsetting them. That would be what was bothering them, that Donald Trump could pilfer, literally steal, and then conceal that he took hundreds of documents. I think there were 187 documents, and 20 of them were top secret compartmentalized information. 50 of them were secret, and 100 of them were top secret, and whatever. It's like some crazy And then on the back end, he said, I didn't take anything. I didn't take anything. And then after he got caught, he said somebody planted them. So now they're going to try and paint Democrats as being like conspiracy theorists. But Donald Trump was the original somebody planted them person. Well, I didn't take anything. Somebody must have planted them. Somebody must have planted. And then they realized, no, nobody planted them. You do have them. And he said, okay, I'll give 38 of them back. And then he tried to hide the fact that he had hundreds more. And when the FBI finally, after 8 months of negotiating with him, 8 months of saying to him, the National Archives keeps records and they are missing over 100 documents. You must have them. No, I don't have them. That's when they got a warrant, and there was probable cause to search his house. There was probable cause to believe that he had documents at Magaloco. And sure as crap, when they, when the judge said, yes, you've shown probable cause, I'm going to issue the warrant. When they executed the warrant, went there were hundreds of freaking documents there. Now, conversely, I have to say, the aides who packed up Joe Biden's, vice president, the vice presidential office, They have already been interviewed by federal law enforcement officials. They're trying to, we even have names of some of the staffers. I mean, there's a girl, her name's Kathy. I won't give you her last name. If you read the newspaper, you know it because they did publish it. So it's not like a big secret or anything. But I just don't want, people in this audience to like threaten her. And, there are some miscreants in this audience too. But her name's Kathy, and she was an executive assistant to Joe Biden when he was vice president of the United States. And she helped pack up his vice presidential office way back in 2017. And the special counsel wanted to talk to her, and she said, yes, absolutely, give me a call. And they've already interviewed her. They've interviewed several of the staffers that were responsible for packing up. And you know that this was an accident. They all complied, quote, quickly. Quote, the people who were boxing up the vice presidential office had no idea that there was anything in there that shouldn't leave the White House. There was no decision made to take certain documents that should have been presidential records or classified. And we've already spoken to them. This is going to be like such a backcrap crazy Congress. I can't, and it already is. It already is. And now we're facing a forced error. You could say the Biden thing was a forced error, and I wouldn't correct you. But he didn't do it. Staffers did it. And they are, cooperating, and they're trying to explain how they got there. How did these documents get there? Well, they apparently put everything in boxes, and then the boxes were moved wholesale. And Joe Biden never knew what was in those boxes. He just, his staff, were the ones that were overseeing the movers. And so some things got stuck in a box that shouldn't have been stuck in a box. They should have been segregated out, and they should have been returned. And as soon as they were found, first call, National Archives. Guess what? We were packing up the Biden office, and we found this. This belongs to you. Come get it. Okay. Next day, they had them. Next day, Archives had them. This is not the same damn thing.
Clear. This is the Randi Rhodes Show.
It is.
To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Okay, here's a little mashup of the Republicans when they heard about Donald Trump's classified documents versus when they heard about Joe Biden's classified documents.
What I've seen that the National Archives was concerned about Trump having in his possession didn't amount to a hill of beans.
I don't know what documents were at Mar-a-Lago.
Is it fair to say that investigation won't be a priority?
That will not be a priority. This is very concerning. I mean, this is now the second location that the president was in possession of classified documents. Look, what's the vice president doing with classified documents?
This is so outrageous that this has to rise to the level of this better not be a clerical issue between the archivist and the former president.
I've been in the Oval Office with the president. I'd be very surprised if he has actual documents that rise to the level of immediate national security threat.
These facts and circumstances are just absolutely outrageous. I mean, this is completely mishandling of classified information.
Why did he have these documents? When did he get them? Did he get them when he was vice president and then take them with him when he left?
Are you going to hold hearings?
It is possible that we will hold hearings on them.
If they try to prosecute President Trump for mishandling classified information after Hillary Clinton set up a server in her basement, they literally will be riots in the street. I worry about our country. If there's not a special counsel appointed to find out how this happened with President Biden regarding classified information, there is going to be a lot of it will hurt the country.
He wanted to say there'd be riots in the street again, but he got, beat up by, his own, cadre of sycophants when he said it last time. But, I mean, it just, where they sit is where they stand. Okay, they have no principles. They have no ground. They don't believe that, classified documents ought to be, taken care of better than are being taken care of in this day and age, right? Now, Donald Trump literally stole the documents and took them from the White House and brought them to Magaloco. Now, we're starting to see what happened. How did Biden's documents get to where they were located? And we know now because they talked to some of the staffers who said that the documents that were found in the Penn Biden office were among materials that had been boxed up, this is a quote, boxed up and moved wholesale, meaning the vice president of the United States did not, say, I want this and I'm taking that. No, they were packed up, they were put in a box, and the boxes were then moved to the General Services Administration, the GSA. That's the way that the rapid handover of power is supposed to happen in this here country. I would suggest that they don't do it that way anymore. I would suggest that if you have any classified documents, that they go directly to the National Archives. But okay, so these things went to the GSA administration for the rapid handover from one administration to another. And then from there, items were taken to a temporary office. And then from there, they went to the Penn facility. And that's where they sat for 5 years until they were moving from that office, out of that office, okay? And that's when they saw the cover sheets and said, oh, my God, there's, things with cover sheets that indicate that they are classified material. They belong to the American people. They belong to the National Archives. Let's call them up and let's tell them that they've been sitting here for 5 years. And the next day, the National Archives had them. And there's just no comparison to what. But of course, it doesn't stop them from being the world heavyweight champion, hypocritical liars that they are. Where you sit determines where you stand on protecting national security. It really does. And if they sit on the right side of the aisle and the president sits on the same side of the aisle with them, and the president then takes secret compartmentalized intelligence on purpose, and denies that he has it for 8 months, only to come 8 months later as a result of a search warrant executed on his resort, that you find hundreds of these documents. And then he turns around and says, oh, no, they were planted. And then he turns around and he said, oh, no, they're mine. They're mine. They're not yours. They're mine. I mean, how many reasons did we get from him? None of them believable. But I just, he was on the right-wing radio yesterday. I can't. It just makes me so angry. Calling Jack Smith, who is the independent counsel that's looking into not just the Proud Boys and not just, Donald Trump telling them to stand back and stand by, which, by the way, the Proud Boys are on trial, as you know, right now outside of D.C. with a D.C. jury. Good luck to you. But he called up and said that Jack Smith made fun of his name. I don't know how you get to make fun of Smith. But Jack Smith was a terrorist. Seriously.
This prosecutor should resign. He's got a conflict. My prosecutor.
This Jack
his name
Smith.
Is Jack Smith. I wonder what his name was before Smith. I don't know. Maybe it was Smith, but it seems like such a nice name, Jack Smith.
What?
He is a terrorist.
He's a terrorist.
He is a Trump hater. His best friends are Weissman and all of these characters.
Yeah.
Lisa Monaco at the Justice Department, one of the top officials.
Deputy Attorney General.
This is a disgraceful situation. He should resign. His wife hates Trump, probably even beyond him. And his wife has a sister who openly hates it like a level that you can't even believe. And this is the man that's going to give me fair.
He's deranged, okay? He is literally deranged and guilty of sin. I mean, and Paul Ryan was on the TV saying, look, he's a loser is what he is.
He's a proven loser. He cost us the House in 18. He cost us the White House in 20. He cost us the Senate again and again. And I think we all know that, and I think we're moving past Trump. I really think that's the case. I can't imagine him getting the nomination, frankly. And I don't mean this because I don't want him to get the nomination. I just don't think he will as an analytical point. The thing that I take solace in with all the machinations you saw last week, most of that wasn't personal. Most of that was around fiscal responsibility. Most of that was about a concern about spending, inflation, and debt.
That's it. That's all that was. So the Republicans started eating their own to show that they were fiscally responsible? No. That was so that the insurrectionist crowd, the freedom crackers who participated in an insurrection, who were tweeting, this is a 1776 moment, the Boberts and the Biggs and the Gosars and the, today is the day that we, all these guys, they were all part of it, okay? They were all part of it. Lindsey Graham was calling Georgia saying, maybe we could throw out the absentee ballots and then go and taking his Fifth Amendment right to not testify after he tried so hard to avoid a subpoena in the grand jury in Fulton County. I mean, Flynn took the Fifth. They all, it's so sick. And it's, oh no, they're just being fiscally, no, they're not being fiscally responsible. They're trying to flip the narrative. They're trying to blame the victim. They're trying to say that the Democrats are the problem instead of the insurrection caucus. This weaponization of the government committee, just its name itself, is the Insurrection Protection Committee. That's what it is. And you know what they floated? Because McCarthy actually, I believe, made a deal with Trump. Okay. And I think, everybody's like wondering, well, what changed from the day that, McCarthy was attacked as part of, the insurrection, stood on the floor and said Donald Trump is to blame. Then he was summoned to Magaloco, goes down there, and all of a sudden he's cool with it. And everybody was wondering, like, what the hell happened? I promise you, Donald Trump told him he could get the Freedom Crackers to vote for him for Speaker of the House, but only if McCarthy pledges, okay, like a blood omerta, to endorse Donald Trump as the Republican nominee in 2024. And so all of a sudden today, I think it was today or last night, I mean, it's all mashing together, so much going on. McCarthy says he's interested in expunging the record of Donald Trump's multiple impeachments, plural. He's interested in just destroying the record, expunging the record of Donald Trump's guilt in extorting Ukraine, who are now fighting for their very existence, okay, and also for the insurrection. It's amazing. And I will tell you, what's really twisted is the defense attorneys in the Proud Boys case, which is, ongoing. Today is Friday, and they're in court today for day 2. But in their opening arguments yesterday, the defense attorneys for Enrique Tarrio and for, Joey Rizzola, the guy that broke the window with the police shield, they're saying it's not our fault. It's Trump's fault. They want to... They're blaming Donald Trump. They said, we just went to a rally. That's all we did. Yeah, because everybody goes to a rally dressed in fatigues. Everybody goes to a rally in camo. Everybody goes to a rally and ends up, stealing police officer shields and then breaking the window of the House of Representatives in order to stop the certification of a free and fair election. Everybody does that. But they're all starting to eat each other at this point. And it couldn't happen to nicer people.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created
equal. To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Briefing I got from the FBI, you wouldn't have Swalwell on any committee.
What?
And you're going to tell me other Democrats couldn't fill that slot? He cannot get a security clearance in the private sector.
What?
So would you like to give him a government clearance? You asked me questions about Santos. You asked the questions about Swalwell. Not only was he getting a clearance, he was inside an intel committee.
So?
He had more information than the majority of all the members. Did you ever raise that issue?
Why?
No, but you should have. You're going to tell me there's 200 other Democrats that couldn't fill that slot, but they kept him on it? The only way that they even knew it came forward is when they went to nominate him to the Intel Committee. And then the FBI came and told the leadership then, he's got a problem. And they kept him on. That jeopardized all of us. Adam Schiff openly lied to the American public.
What?
He told you he had proof. He told you he didn't know the whistleblower. He put America for 4 years through an impeachment that he knew was a lie.
What?
At the same time we had Ukraine, at the same time we had Afghanistan collapse. Was that the role of the Intel Committee? No. So what I am doing with the Intel Committee, bringing it back to the jurisdiction it's supposed to do, forward-looking to keep this country safe, keep the politics out of it. So yes, I'm doing exactly what we're supposed to do.
Wow, he is really a disgusting, smarmy, unbelievable world heavyweight champion bullcrapper. That's Kevin McCarthy, obviously, and he's conflating a couple things there. But let's just discuss this. Eric Swalwell does not have a problem. The FBI did not brief Kevin McCarthy and tell him he's got a problem. That never happened. In fact, the FBI actually told Eric Swalwell about what? 12 years ago? This is going back 12 years. 12 years ago, Eric Swalwell was running for the Congress. And, he's in California, and there were all kinds of people that were fundraising for him. And one of those people that was fundraising for him disappeared and went back to China. She was a Chinese citizen. She never gave him a dime. There was no Chinese money that was ever donated to Eric Swalwell's campaign. None of that ever happened. But because she was a young girl, okay, and she was fundraising and went back to China like rapidly. I don't know. She just checked out and said she was going back to China. All of a sudden, Eric Swalwell gets tainted with he was, cuddled up to some Chinese spy. Well, I got news for you. This girl from China, she was trying to get close, just like, the one from the NRA. Remember her who went back to Russia? Yeah. Just like that, she had come here to insert herself into, the National Rifle Association. She's now a member of the Duma in Russia. That redhead?
Is it Butina or something?
Yes, Maria Butina, that's her. And she was a Russian spy, and she got inside the NRA, and actually somehow $30 million showed up at the NRA. $30 million was donated. I mean, these people are such front-running phonies. They are so fake. They are so fraudulent. They are so disgusting. Eric Swalwell today is getting, death threats, really threatening, disgusting phone calls about how they're going to hang him and he's going to swing from a tree. And, it's just so disgusting. This is a story that happened, like so many years ago. And the FBI told Eric Swalwell about this girl and said, you really ought to stay away from her. And he said, fine, and did. But when Republicans are told Maria Butina was sent here by Vladimir Putin and they inserted her into the NRA, no, that didn't happen. That's not true. And she goes back to Russia, and now she's in the Russian Duma. She's a member of the House in Russia. And, putting out propaganda for Vladimir Putin on, the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Twitters. They're so sick. They're so twisted. But as far as who couldn't get a security clearance, let's not leave that subject without mentioning that Jared Kushner and Ivanka couldn't get security clearances. Do you remember that? They couldn't pass the vetting. So Donald Trump had to insert himself. And General Kelly, who was the chief of staff at that time, said, I'm sorry, Mr. President, but your son-in-law and your daughter do not qualify for security clearances. We can't give them security clearances. Donald Trump said, I'm the president. I can give anybody a security clearance. And John Kelly made a note of it, saying that against the intelligence community's best assessment, Donald Trump wishes to and is giving security clearances to Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. Now, Ivanka went on to get Chinese patents on a trip with, her daddy to China worth multiple millions of dollars. And Jared walked out of the White House with $2 billion worth of, money in a investment firm, even though he's never, ever, ever been a finance guy. He's a real estate dude who inherited real estate from his daddy, who went to prison. Yeah, Charles Kushner. Look it up. Jailbird. And they couldn't get security clearances. They are literally taking what is true and flipping it on its head in order to bamboozle and confuse people as they throw us into a depression by challenging the debt ceiling. and saying that unless and until we make cuts in Social Security and Medicare, they're not going to raise the debt ceiling. And the catastrophe that would ensue is too bad. Too bad for you. And I'm not the only one saying it. I mean, there are tons and tons and tons of pieces. We put a lot of them in the homework today, a lot of them, about the Republicans who are going to slash Social Security and Medicare. And I'll just tell you, Krugman in the New York Times today said, before he gets into the puzzle of why they want to do this, especially when, Republican voters tend to be older white males who are most likely getting benefits from Social Security and Medicare. He said, before I get into the puzzles, let me start by pointing out that the plot against the social safety net is not a conspiracy theory. He said the general shape of the scheme has been widely reported for months. The arithmetic is also clear. It isn't possible to achieve huge reductions in the budget deficit while at the same time depriving the IRS of the resources it needs to go after tax cheats without deep cuts in popular social programs. So, you have to look at what they did their first week in the House, okay? Now, they're threatening members. They're pulling them off committees. Okay, they're lying about their ability to get security clearances, which is true for Donald Trump's brood, right? It's true that they couldn't get security clearances without Donald Trump being the president of the United States and giving it to them. Then they decided to do 2 bills yesterday that were, already illegal things. You can't murder, babies in this country. You just can't. I know they want to think that women are murderers and we want our babies murderers and we can find doctors who will do the deed for us, somehow. I don't know. But they passed these laws making what is already illegal again. They started this thing off by fighting each other. Then they disbanded the Office of Congressional Ethics as George Santos was being sworn in. And this guy is a financial fraudster, the likes of which, should never be anywhere near Congress, let alone on a committee. Like he wanted the Financial Services Committee. It's what he wanted. And then they defunded the IRS. So now everybody understands why they did that, because there is no way that America can function and have a balanced budget without collecting from the tax cheats or slashing Social Security and Medicare. He said, beyond that, we now have it in black and white. He said, well, blue on blue. Because he shows you in this article, you can click on it, a screenshot of a slide presented at a closed-door Republican meeting this past Tuesday. And the first bullet point calls for balancing the budget within 10 years, which is mathematically impossible without deep cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Truth to Power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
All right, let's see. Tim in Massachusetts.
Hi, can I just ask you a straightforward question? There's not one time I watch your show where I don't get so enraged, so angry, and especially about this debt ceiling thing. Is there simply a number we can call to contact these evil people and tell them what we're thinking?
Yeah.
That's all I want. It's just one number. Just give me one number to call, and I'll do it.
Okay, it's 202-224-3121. Okay, that is.
I'm there.
Okay, so that's not going to get you there. That's going to get you in the adjacent to where you need to be. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the number for the House of Representatives, and the people that you want to talk to. There are 18. There are 18 of them. The people that you want to talk to are representatives, GOP representatives, Republicans who won in Biden districts, meaning they are from swing districts. There are 18 of them. I can give you their names, but it's a long list. Okay.
I know. I understand. This whole cut in Social Security and Medicare. This just can't happen. This just can't. I mean, this affects all of us. This just can't happen. So, I mean, like I said, there's not a time I don't watch your show where either I just cry. I really do, and I just need a number to call and just tell these people what I'm feeling and what I'm a citizen. I deserve that right.
Well, you have the right to do that, but without knowing who they are, how do you even complete the thought?
Give me a website. Give me anything I can look up where I can find these people and just root them out.
Just Google
anything.
Google Biden district Republicans.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll get a list of 18 people.
Okay, because you guys should really on your show flash a number or something that we should all be calling and all of us get together, because if we flood them with calls, they will hear us.
Well, like I said, the number is 202-224-3121. That's the number for the House of Representatives. And then you want to ask to be connected to, like, David Schweikart from Arizona, or Juan Ciscomani from Arizona, or John Duarte from California, or David Valdado, or Mike Garcia, or Young Kim, also California, or Michelle Steele from California. Nebraska, you want to talk to Don Bacon, or Tom Keene from New Jersey, or Nick. I mean, there's a long list. That's the thing. But
real quick,
you can just do the basic Google search and just put in Biden district Republicans and you'll get their names.
Yeah, I got a few problems with a few Republicans, a few Democrats too. Kirsten Sinema, she's taking a lot of money from Big Pharma.
So that's the Senate. I'm talking about the House, okay? So
right. I'm saying on the other side of the aisle, I have a problem with a few Democrats too.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but if you want...
it's not just the Republicans, too. I mean, I'm independent myself.
It is just the Republicans.
I don't know which way to swing anymore.
It is.
I'm sorry?
It is just the Republicans. There is no way...
It is. You're on to that one. But Kirsten Sinema, she's taking a lot of money from Big Pharma. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, that's...
So it's Peters, Schaefer, and Rice.
What? Schweikart.
Peters, Schweikart, I'm sorry, and Rice. Rice has taken a lot of... He's taking a lot of money from Big Pharma as well.
Okay.
So...
You have no idea what you're talking about, and that is a damn crying shame. And this is why they get to, railroad you. This is why they get to roll over you. This is why, because people can't figure out what to do. And I'm telling you point blank what to do. There are 18 House members who are Republican who won in swing districts. Okay, meaning they could go either way. You say you're an independent. You should be familiar with, swing districts, right? And there's 18 of them in the House, and that is where this assault will begin. The Senate is not going to default us, okay? And that is the issue that's on the table. Whether or not we default, because the Republicans want to put Social Security and Medicare into the out of the mandatory spending column and put it in discretionary spending so that they can steal from it. That is what they would like to do. It's not that complex a problem. It's not that complex to figure out. It's not that complex to make a phone call and say, do not touch Social Security and Medicare to balance the budget. That's just not the place you should do it. You need to raise revenue. If you're $49 billion short or whatever you are, raise taxes on people making over $400,000, and the President of the United States will sign it. Casey and Magaloco.
Hey, how you doing, Randy?
Hello.
It's good to talk to you.
Thank you.
You kind of answered my question at the beginning, but I wanted to kind of keep going, talking about Social Security. Did Papa Bush and W do as well like Reagan? Did they dip into
all of them did. Yes.
They did, and they left it IOU, basically, correct?
Correct.
So let me ask you a question. Like, we spent 20 years supposedly doing nation building in Iraq and all this other stuff. This is what infuriates me, and I'm embarrassed to be an American, is that, we have thrown money every which way else except to the middle class and the poor, and we've allowed this happen for decades and over 40 years, and, so how do we stop this from them stealing from us? I mean, and on top of that,
the first thing to do is to understand how it happens. That's the first thing to do. You want to solve a mystery, you have to understand, who done it, right? And so once you know who done it, and once you understand why they do it, they're doing it to their own people. So I have told you for years, and you know this, that they keep voting against their own best interests, right? Why do they do that? Because the Republicans, like the resentment that permeates their party. They like the idea that people are unhappy with their government. They like the idea that people are, distrustful of their government. It gives them every opportunity to sell conspiracy theories and lies to these people instead of, fixing the problems.
Well, if I'm wrong, tell me this, okay? So the Cubans can come here from Cuba, right? Since the 70s or the 60s, when since the embargo, and they get Social Security and Medicare as soon as they get here, and I don't. I mean, that's why I'm kind of lost.
You are. Brother David.
Oh, sister.
Oh, my.
It is a freaking out Friday the 13th.
Yep.
It's about as Friday the 13th as any in my recent memory. Let's see. It's someone in the chat room, I think Linda said, hi, chat room. There is a little whiff of the possibility of the President Pop's classified documents being planted, but I don't think that's the case. I think they wouldn't have been transparent about it, right? What scares me, at the end, our last call at the end of the year, I talked about progress, and you quite rightfully said there'd be no progress with this House, and we've already seen it in, a week?
Right.
The only thing that keeps me going is that if we can somehow hold on and withstand with the Senate and President Pop, they are giving us an active 2024 panoply for those elections. But it's going to be a long, hard 2 years. It's just that simple.
Well, if they crash the economy, then the amount of resentment that they are going to be able to exploit is going to be legion. And this is what they want to do. That's why. They just want people so angry. They just want people so broke, so angry. And then they're going to point at Biden and say Biden crashed the economy. I mean, this is who they are. They're doing it now with the simplest things, like Eric Swalwell couldn't get a clearance. Well, we all know Jared couldn't get a clearance. Ivanka couldn't get a clearance. Donald Trump would never have gotten a clearance unless he was the president of the United States. They had to give him one. Do you know what I mean? This is such garbage, but they do it on purpose.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
He's a proven loser. He cost us the House in 18. He cost us the White House in 20. He cost us the Senate again and again. And I think we all know that. And I think we're moving past Trump. I really think that's the case. I can't imagine him getting the nomination, frankly. And I don't mean this because I don't want him to get the nomination. I just don't think he will as an analytical point. The thing that I take solace in with all the machinations you saw last week, most of that wasn't personal. Most of that was around fiscal responsibility.
You're delusional.
Most of that was about a concern about spending, inflation, and debt. That's great. I think you need to persuade the country as to the solutions and the problem, and I don't think brinksmanship solves those things. But what's behind that is a good thing, which is Republicans finally reacquiring their moorings on the party of fiscal responsibility and limited government. That, to me, is the good thing that I see in all of this weird stuff. That's the good thing. So the question is, can we put a very positive interpretation? Can we put form and substance? Yeah, well, I'm a Republican. I am not a member of an organized party. I am a Republican.
That's very nice. Little Will Rogers for you.
So the point I'm trying to make is those juices are flowing, and that is churning, and I think we're hopefully coming back full circle to being maybe a populist party. That's great and fine. I want to be popular, but principled and with policies that solve problems.
With governance, yeah.
And fiscal conservatism was a theme that you saw behind all of those tactics. Sure, that's a good thing.
That's a bull crap. I almost said it. That is total bull crap, okay? This whole thing about fiscal conservatism, this supply side trickle-down economic theory that they deployed upon us back in the 80s, never worked. It didn't work in the 80s. That's why they had to get into the Social Security Trust Fund and steal that money. And they haven't stopped stealing that money ever since Ronald Reagan, which is why Ronald Reagan is their hero. Ronald Reagan helped them pull off a $2.7 trillion heist from ordinary Americans who were paying payroll taxes and instead of putting it into the trust fund to shore up Social Security and Medicare, which wasn't in trouble then and isn't in trouble now, they decided to put that money in the general fund, and they literally paid for tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans out of that increase in payroll taxes that was supposed to be going to shore up Social Security. They have been world heavyweight champions of, misdirection and lying about the trust funds and that they're insolvent, they're going insolvent, they're bankrupt, they're going to be bankrupt. This is one of the original lies, and it's why they love Ronald Reagan. They talk about fiscal conservatism. It never worked, ever, not once, ever. Not any time in history does, cutting taxes for the wealthy produce more revenue. Okay? It just doesn't happen. But what did the Republicans do this week? They cut The IRS. They cut the ability for the IRS to hire customer service reps who would get your refund out to you, and also to have them hire some highfalutin, tax geniuses who could go through complex tax returns like a Donald Trump's, right? And hold their feet to the fire and collect the monies that are legitimately due. No, instead they write these laws, carried interest laws and depreciation laws, and pass-through companies don't have to pay Social Security payroll tax, and certain businesses don't have to pay Social Security tax. Oh, and by the way, Social Security obligations to pay the tax end at, I think it's 160 now. Okay, anything over 160,000, the 160,000th one dollar, that next dollar doesn't get taxed at all. I mean, this is such a bull crap lie. But, there's obvious evidence that this is what they're doing, because they had their little meeting, the other day, and there was a screenshot of a slide presented at a closed-door Republican meeting on Tuesday of this week, which was when they decided they were going to cut the IRS, right? And the first bullet point calls for balancing the budget within 10 years, which is mathematically impossible without deep cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The second bullet point on their slide calls for reforms to, what I just told you, mandatory spending. So mandatory spending are the entitlement programs. Mandatory spending is Social Security. Mandatory spending is Medicare. Mandatory spending is Medicaid. Discretionary spending, that's tax. That's tax cuts and paying the Department of Defense, and you know what I'm saying. So that's budget speak. Mandatory programs for Social Security and Medicare, and then the final bullet point on their little slideshow calls for refusing to raise the debt limit unless these demands are met. So their demand is that you take Social Security out of mandatory spending and you put it on the chopping block. You make it discretionary spending. You let them take the Social Security trust fund money. You let them take even more than they've already taken. Now, they're going to start talking this up. They're going to start telling you, well, it's not going to be for current recipients. They won't be affected. That isn't even a feasible promise, because if they want to balance the budget in 10 years, then yes, it's going to have to affect the 100 million people who get Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Yes, of course it's going to affect current recipients. So that's a lie. 100 million Americans is what we're talking about here in favor of this handful of lapdogs who are lapdogs for the billionaire class, who are lapdogs for the donors. And they're going to start to, Medicare and Social Security is socialism. That's what Ronald Reagan was saying. Oh my God. No, it's not socialism. You paid into it. It's not socialism. It's not welfare. It's something that you set aside for your own damn self out of every single paycheck you got, up to $160,000 a year every single pay period. This is frightening, and that Americans don't even understand that they need to pick up a phone, and that they do need to call representatives, and that they do need to call Republicans who won in swing districts, meaning Republicans who are, in districts that could vote either way, and sound the clarion call to them and go, you will lose. You will lose. You touch the seniors in New York. You touch the seniors in New Jersey. You touch the seniors in Arizona, okay? You touch them in Nebraska, Don Bacon, and you will reap the whirlwind from the voters. You will. Joe on Long Island.
Hi, Randy.
Hey,
Thanks
Joe.
for taking my call.
Sure.
I wonder, you spoke a lot from...
Who's your representative? Do you know?
It's Zelnick in Long Island.
Oh, God.
Believe it or not.
Okay.
Not that I had anything to do with him getting in there.
Right.
But anyway, with Reagan, all right, he promised us a trickle-down fortune for us. Now, I wonder if all those Republicans that voted for him, are they still waiting for that? They should give that up. And the other thing is, I don't believe the Secret Service so much. I mean, these guys are taught not to see, hear, or talk about anything. All right? Now, I can't believe that all of a sudden there are secret documents in Biden's office.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with the Secret Service.
I'm sorry. I just don't trust them after they didn't want to come.
Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right. It's Friday. Annie in North Carolina.
Happy New Year.
Hey, thank you. You too.
You're looking great on TV, by the way. Anyway, I was a former federal worker, and I'll get to that point. But the first point I want to make, we have these smartphones, and we can find these representatives' direct numbers just to take a little, heat off of those operators at the Capitol. They work so hard. Some of it is voicemail, and you have to know your zip code and all that kind of stuff. So what I've been doing is I just put in, Representative Don Bacon phone numbers, and it pops up, and you can get his district offices. You can get his direct number to D.C., and that's what I've been doing.
The problem is, Annie, that most people don't even know who I'm talking about. They're not, like sitting there paying attention to, 18 Republicans who have voted in a block. Okay, they've all voted unanimously to do away with the IRS. They all voted unanimously to set up this weaponization, whatever, their insurrection protection.
I hear you.
Okay, and so most people don't know what to do. And so, you know what I did? I tweeted out, I found a list of the 18 that wanted.
Oh, I got to look for it.
So if you are online at all, and somebody said to me, "Can't you just?" And I said, "Well, let me, do this." So I'm at Randi Rhodes right on Twitter, and I just tweeted out these House GOP members, one in districts, Biden, one swing districts, call them at, and I just gave the main number, and I said, and tell them to keep your stinking hands off Social Security and Medicare.
That's what
or you will lose in 2024. And I sent the list.
Okay, great. I'm going to look for that. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Social Security that they want to take away. Won't that be taken away from widows and orphans?
Yes, and disabled people.
You know who was a widow and an orphan? Paul Ryan was an orphan at 15. His dad died. He got Social Security, and his mom got widow benefits.
Right.
Yeah, and then real quick, I was a federal worker, and you know what Reagan did? Even though I paid into Social Security and my pension, when I turned 62, which was like how many years? 6 years ago, no matter if I was taking my Social Security or not, my pension dropped $10,000.
What?
The year I turned 62. Yeah, because they didn't want to. He had it set up so we're not allowed to. They called it we were double dipping. So every year, and the thing is, Randy, it took 10 years for it to go from $14,000 to $18,000. And the year I turned 62, it went from $18,000 to 10. And since then, I just did the math. Since I turned 62, I've got a $400 increase in my pension total. So that's what they did to federal workers. Stripped us of our pension. Stripped us of our pension because we were getting Social Security. Yeah.
Let me tell you. When I first joined the military, I did it because I wanted a GI Bill. I wanted to go to college and I couldn't afford it. And Ronald Reagan was president. When I got out, there was no GI Bill.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So they've been stealing from people who are working really hard to better themselves or working really hard to, contribute to their own security, their own retirement, their own, ability to function on this planet without being a burden by paying into pension funds, by paying into Social Security trust fund. And they've been stealing since 1983.
Right. And just one last point. My taxable income is $17,000. I paid more taxes last year than Trump, close to $800.
Right. He paid $750.
And next year, this April 15th, I'm probably looking at $1,000.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I get penalized because I'm a sole proprietor, and I have to pay like this crazy tax because I'm a sole proprietor, but Donald Trump pays like nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Listen, this whole thing is twisted against the middle class and the working poor.
Yeah.
It's by design because they can hear the level of not knowing what to do out there, and they figure, well, no one knows what to do, so let's just do it to them.
Yeah, we'll just take it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll just take it because big business, they have lobbyists, they have lawyers, they have people sit, in the office right now talking to members saying, don't you dare take away the earned,
right, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, they're lobbying on the tax code every single minute of every single day, and we don't have anybody there.
Right, Tom Tillis, my senator. He'll probably vote to take Social Security away from his own mother. His mother gets Social Security. But see, he's worth $10 to $12 million. He'll be able to take care of his mom. Who's going to take care of my 92-year-old mother when her Social Security is taken away? Because mine will be gone.
Well, listen, my mom, she's on. Right. Well, it doesn't pay for anything for her. Nothing.
Oh, I know. It doesn't. My mom doesn't either. Yeah.
Because she's not on Medicaid. Because we don't, just zero out her bank accounts and say, okay, she has.
My mother, the same thing. My mother, the same thing. Medicare and Social Security. Same exact thing. 92 years old. 93 this year.
But I'm saying something to you. I'm saying that there are people out there who zero out their parents' balances, right? And say that their parents own nothing, and they put their houses or their apartments, whatever, in the kid's name, so that the parents look like they're destitute. And then Medicaid kicks in and pays for them to live in nursing homes or pays for them to live in assisted living, where decent people who won't do that are now being threatened with losing my mom's Medicare, which she paid for.
Yeah, my mother too. Mm-hmm. Our mom's about the same age.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So thank you for your time. I love you. I love the show.
Thank you.
Again, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
You too, Annie. Happy New Year. I mean, honestly, the reason why they pick on the middle class, and the reason why they pick on people who have 3 jobs, and the reason why they pick on people with little kids or senior citizens is because they think, and some of them are not thinking so poorly, that you don't know how to fight back, that you don't know what to do, that you can't figure out what the caper is, that you can't figure out the mystery, that you can't figure out how to make a phone call, that you can't figure out who to call or what to say when you get on that call. Okay, that's why. And why are they afraid of their base? Because their base calls and threatens their lives. Their base is violent. Okay? And we're not. But when we can't figure our way out of a paper bag, when you can't figure out how to dial a phone, when you can't figure out that there are 18 Republicans who just won by the skin of their teeth, okay? And the only reason why a whole bunch of them won is because they were gerrymandered into their seats, okay? So you have to focus on the people who won in swing districts where they're not really loyal to either party, okay? They could go either way depending on what their constituents want them to do. So you need to call those 18 Republicans because they vote in a block. Okay, they have been so unified on disbanding the IRS. They've been so unified in wanting to defund Medicare and Social Security. They're so unified in having the Insurrection Protection Committee. This is ridiculous. This is not what you want to start with the basics. You could start with the basics. Just tell them, these 18 Republicans, I did not vote for you to do an Insurrection Protection Committee. I voted for you because you said there was crime, a problem with crime. I voted for you because you said that you cared about inflation. You just passed 2 abortion bills. I spent the whole week watching you guys fight with each other. It was embarrassing. It was humiliating. And then the first thing out of the gate, you dismember the IRS. How are you going to balance the budget if you refuse to collect taxes from the top 1%? How does that work? That's the basics. Patrick in L.A.
Randi, nice to talk to you. The entire basis of fiscal conservatism is mythology. Nothing about it is real. One big, let me see a couple examples. I think Eisenhower was the last to decrease the deficit and the debt.
No, Bill Clinton had a balanced budget.
Well, the last Republican. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Last Republican. So, they don't even try to do it. But also, they don't follow very basic principles of finance and and accounting. In other words, no business would ever try to bring in less revenue, less income. They would never try to do it.
Exactly.
Because they need to be solvent.
Right.
They need to be solvent. They're trying to become insolvent.
Yes, they are, because then they can steal the big tranches of money that are sitting there. Then they could steal the trust funds.
Insolvency is the way that Republicans operate, and then they build mythology around it.
That's exactly right. You got it. You're so that. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. And now I don't feel like I'm just shouting into the wind. It's a myth, okay? It's not real. You can't cut taxes of very wealthy taxpayers and say that you're going to have more revenue coming into the government unless you're willing to steal it from people who make less. Period. And that's what they're doing. That's what they want to do.